Yes, so today we are reviewing a very interesting book, a book by. So I have the summary here, and I made sure that while doing the summary, it is very, very detailed. So you would probably, if you do not eventually read this book, I can assure that you are getting almost 70% of the book after going through this live session through this audio summary. So I make sure that the summary is very detailed and I do not leave out any important part that I think will be very important to my listeners. Forgive me. So let's dive into it. What's the title of the book? The book is Living the Tarmac, which is Buying a Bank in Africa by Aigboje, AIG Imoukhuede. Forgive me if I mispronounce the name, but I call him AIG. That's what I call him. If you have read the book before, you'll be familiar with this person. And so this book, how did I get to know about this book? It was recommended. I was watching a YouTube video and the person that was speaking mentioned the name. So I felt, okay, I respect the person that mentioned this, so let me go look for the book. And when I got the book, the first few pages already got me interested. So I just keyed into it and I read to the end. And I felt instead of just reading alone, why don't I do a summary or audio book to talk about the book? I have about 11 pages here. I hope I'm able to run through this, all of this within the time I have for this live session. So let's dive into it. This summary is designed to be detailed companion, allow you to understand the book's narrative, key concept, the pivotal moments without needing to refer back to the original text. You might even want to read the book, but you want to retain enough content from the book. This summary is also very good for you. So the way I read books is that I read the soft copy. I rarely read hard copy. So I read soft copy and I listen to the audio version. There is a software that I use to read book. I think there are two. I have one Read Era, then one of them I can't remember the name now. So I play the audio, I listen to it while I'm not doing deep work. Perhaps when I'm taking a walk, when I'm just relaxing, so I listen to the audiobook. Then I use an AI tool to summarize, and the prompt is very, very detailed. It's a long prompt such that the AI tool gives me the summary of the book without losing any important part. For example, the stories in the book, the concept, the pivotal moments, the narratives of the book has to be captured in the book. So when I get the summary of the book from the AI, then I now put in my Word document. So after reading, for example, I can read the audiobook I can listen to audiobook for maybe 1 hour or let's say 50 pages. Then I go back to the summary and read through to be sure that it aligns. And most times it's always aligned. So that helps me to read twice. So that's how I read book and it has helped me to digest a very good content from the book. So let's dive in. The foreword was written by Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. This is a former Nigerian president. He sets the stage by confirming the accuracy of books, account, and acknowledging the author's courage in telling a true story that reveals both success and challenges. And this is one part that really interests me in the book. Living the Tarmac by AIG is what we are reviewing. The fact that he was able to articulate his challenges together and also share the turning point for him. This is, I feel every business owner in Nigeria should have or should go through this book because it tells the true story of what the economy is like in Nigeria. It also tells the true story of the political system in Nigeria and most of the challenges he faced, we can also relate to it because, of course, it's our reality and we are hoping for the best. But while we are that, we need to see where it all started. So he highlights his own administration's economic reform agenda, the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy, which is called NEED. So which aim to create mega banks capable of financing large-scale infrastructure. This is Olusegun Obasanjo still speaking here. He identifies access banks rise from obscurity in 2002 to a position of national and regional leadership as a testament to the author's leadership. Obasanjo commends the bank's focus on sustainable business practices, economic development, and governance, expressing his hope that this track record will continue beyond the author's tenure. He was simply talking about AIG. Yeah? So the introduction written by Igoje AIG Imoukhuede explains his own motivation for writing the book at the moment of stepping down as CEO, the CEO of Access Bank. He aims to inspire young entrepreneurs by showing how a world-class business can be built in a very short time. And I must say that he built this business in a very, very short time. And we're going to get deep into it. With right foundation, values, execution, he laments the lack of literature on African business success story. I think this is very, very true because most Africans or most Nigerians read books written by the West. I mean, the likes of Brian Tracy, Grant Cardone, the likes of, yeah, there are so many of them like that. But we don't have so much literacy that speaks to what we are going through or the context of what is happening in Africa or in Nigeria. How many Nigerian authored book have you read this year? How many have you ever read at all? If you look at for those that read books a lot, if you look at the number of books we've read by Nigerian compared to books we've read by people outside Nigeria, I'm sure that you would have read books from people outside Nigeria compared to Nigeria, especially when it now comes to business. There are some aspects or there are some systems in Nigeria that has to be studied and narrated by Nigerians. And this is what he's saying here. AIG was saying that that's the gap he hopes to fill because so many people are not writing book about their struggle and their success. Imagine, I don't know if Dangote has written any book. I'm not sure exactly. There's another book I read recently by Femi Otedola, Making It Big. That is also a book that I would recommend to any business person in Nigeria because it's very contextual to what we are going through in our country. He has faced, his fair share, and he shared detailed, stories and situational um, environment and the things he went through during his journey and is also still going through. So he laments the lack of literature on African business success story. This The author emphasizes that the Nigerian private sector needs to mature beyond narrow focus on hard IQ. Issues like profit in to incorporate emotional intelligence, risk, and sustainability. The book is a personal account of business philosophies. This is very, very true. That drives that the book, you know, okay, that drove Access Bank's success. A note at the end of the introduction reviews that the book was completed in 2015 but delayed with its content remaining as written then unchanged. So it was supposed to be released in 2015, but it was delayed, but nothing changed in the content. So chapter 1 of the book spoke about entrepreneurial juice, and you will love this. This chapter detailed the author's personal journey and the genesis of the idea to buy a bank. Sincerely, before I read this book, I was totally blank about what goes on in the banking sector. I mean, the process of buying a bank, what the demand is from CBN to banking sector, what the CEO of banks go through, the kind of training they go through, the kind of culture they put into place. I mean, this book captures almost everything. If you are going into banking, if you are into banking, this is a book you should read. The conversation with his mother. The chapter opens with author's mother questioning his decision to leave a prestigious job as executive director at Guarantee Trust Bank to buy a bank. She represents the public perception of bank being owned by Godfather. That's Godfather, the wealthy, influential patron who use banks to consolidate power, not by mere professionals. This is one important part. As much as I just want to read through the book, I think some aspects stood out to me. stood out for me that I think I should just mention. AIG didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to buy a bank. He was working in GTB. That means, and he rose from, you know, getting employment in GTB to become executive director at GTB, which means that he has learned and understood how the system works. Then one day he decided that okay, he has learned a good deal. He wants to buy his own bank. Then the mom was like, "Why will you leave a prestigious job?" But at that time, GTB was one of the foremost bank that was leading at that time by young people. So banks were owned by godfathers because they're wealthy and influential, so they use that to consolidate their power, not because they are really professional, they know exactly what is going on there. So the author's background, AIG, so I call him AIG, maybe some people call him AIG, but I call him AIG. Grew up as a child of civil servant, witnessing their struggles during Nigeria's economic downturn in the 80s, which solidified his determination to pursue a career in the private sector. He started a banking career as a legal officer at Continental Merchant Bank, a UOP bank, soon moved into core banking. The new wave of bankers, the author identified new generation of professional owners, managers like Otunba Shuwomi Balogun as FCMB, Fola Adiola, that's CEO of GT Bank, Jimmy Ovia as CEO of Zenith Bank, who ran banks without godfathers. And that's what I was saying. They focus on professionalism, customer service, and high performance. These were his role models. And remember, he worked with Continental Bank, he worked with GT Bank, and these banks were owned by professionals, not just godfathers. So he has learned how that kind of business is being run. So Harvard Epiphany. Why at Harvard Business School, a book given to him by his brother-in-law, Boycott, the Insider's Guide to Buying Your Own Company, became the catalyst. The image of a small boy being left at the tarmac as a plane took off, a real childhood memory of being dumped or bumped from a flight resurfaced. His memory became a powerful metaphor for his fear of being left behind. He vowed he would never be left on the tarmac again. So this is also a part of partnerships. He said recognizing the need for a partner, he convinced his colleague, a friend, that's Albert Wigwe, to join him. Albert was a chartered accountant who shared a similar civil service background and had also attended the Harvard program. So they met in school. AIG saw Albert as a future successor, establishing a succession plan from the very beginning. And this is also a very interesting part. They could see the end from the beginning. And this question came to me, how can you see the end from the beginning? It's because they've also gone from beginning to the end. They've worked in that system before. They know what it will look like at the end. They've worked at the top, especially for AIG, has worked as executive director in GT Bank. So he could see the beginning and the end from another perspective or from another bank or for what he has gone through. So he could so many people want to start business, but they just want to start because someone else is doing it and it's looking very good. They've not been through the system. And this is one of the reasons why I feel that when children are living, or let's say when um, after graduating from school, the first thing is not just to start your business. It's very important that you work in a private sector, especially when you intend to start business in that niche or in that sector. Go through it. It might take more time, might take time, might take you 5 years, 10 years. But it's very good to understand how it's being run so that you can do it well and do it right. That's just my own take. So that's chapter one. Chapter one talking about his own background and how he met about who later became his partner in business. So chapter two was a story about buying the bank. This chapter covers the complex and audacious process of acquiring Access Bank. Project Festival. The acquisition project was code-named Project Festival after the street where AIG lived. He compiled a list of targeted banks, but found that desirable ones were too expensive while affordable ones were in poor condition. So how did they find Access Bank? They settled on Access Bank in late 2001. It was a struggling bank enmeshed in central bank investigations for foreign exchange malpractices, and had just filed a public offer for new shares. Its positive attributes were a board of directors with integrity, a listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and acceptable safety indicators. So I pause here to say that business goes through a lot. Business, I mean, there's so many things that you go through in business that you never saw coming. But one thing that I think is very, very important is that in integrity. As a founder, as a business owner, no matter what your business goes through, ensure that your name has a good reputation before people. Ensure that your business can go through a lot, but you should have integrity before people, such that even when you are owing people, even when you borrowed money in dollars and then Naira went down and dollars skyrocketed, and it looks like you borrowed 1 million and you have to pay back 10 million. That is business for you. But your own integrity has to now, should I say, cover up for you, because people can trust that if you say you will, you would eventually pay back, despite the fact that you are going through a lot, the business is suffering, but your integrity has to be intact. And this is why they could buy assessment, because when they checked the board of directors, they felt, okay, these people are men of integrity. So let's still go into it. And also because it was listing on Nigerian Stock Exchange. So how did they raise capital? They needed 1 billion, not only, but they only had 200 million. And this is himself and Herbert. So they pooled resources from friends, family, using landed properties and bank deposits as collateral. The purchase was essentially a leap of faith endorsed by his pastor. So, sometimes, the way having read a couple of books recently, I realized that having, or should I say, having capital or being liquid is very, very important to doing big things. It's very important that you know, the idea of saving that most people know is that you save to buy something. Maybe you have a project before you, so you save, then you do the project and you move on. Then you don't save until you have another project before you. But I think a better idea of saving is that you save without having a project in mind. Like you just keep saving, not because you want to buy a land or property, but you're saving because you could see an opportunity to invest in. And I don't know how they saved 200 million, but what I'm saying is that it's very important to be liquid because opportunity can come anytime. So at every point in time, maybe depending on where you are, you should have an amount that, okay, at every point in time, I cannot have less than 1 million in my account or in my savings. I cannot have less than 10 million in my savings, because when opportunity comes, you have to have something to key it down. While, let's say, you might not have all the money, but if you can use some money to key the opportunity down, then you can have the remaining raised. So that's exactly what they did here. They had 200 million, so they raised the remaining from pool of friends and family. And also it's very important to have people you can always run to. And I think integrity also speaks to this, because how would people borrow you up to 800 million if they don't trust you? So you need to build that integrity before the time you will need it, so that people can trust you and hand over their hard-earned money to you. So this was, like you said, the leap of faith endorsed by his pastor. So leaving GT Bank, how did they leave GT Bank? New When news of acquisition leaked, of course, that kind of news will eventually leak. They had an emotional meeting with his mentor and bosses at GT Bank. That's Fola Adiola and Tayo Aderino. They resigned immediately and avoided conflict of interest. So, what are the regulatory hurdles? The most significant obstacle was Ignatius Imala. the conservative director of banking supervision of Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, he refused to approve the appointment as MD and deputy MD for over a year, suspecting there was a hidden godfather. Of course, this is how bank were being run in those days, except for emerging banks like GT, FCMB, and the likes. So he felt there was a hidden godfather behind their deal. So they ran the bank without formal approval until April 2003, when they were finally approved on an acting basis. So what are the advantages of the delay? And remember, so most times when we face situation or difficulties, especially when they are of the negative, we do not see the positive angle, or we lament and we just get frustrated. But in every disappointment, there is always an appointment. There's always advantage in every disadvantage. It just depends on how we see it. Like, for example, there's a book I'm reading. um I can't remember the author of the book right now, but the title of the book is Tough. I think tough time never lasts, tough people do. So that's the title of the book, and you mentioned the fact that you have to see things in the positive light, no matter the light the whole situation is happening. When you see in a positive light, then you can now take advantage of whatsoever the situation is, and that's exactly what they did here. So what's the advantage of the delay? This delay later proved beneficial when CBN later capped CEO tenure at 10 years. It was his former tenure started later, giving him more time to lead. So this whole delay gave him more time to lead. But of course, you won't see it at the beginning. It will look like a delay until the other side unfolds. That's when you can now see. So, but it's very important that you approach with positive energy and see the positive, angle of the delay. So that's the wrap of chapter 2. If you have been following so far, I want you to like and subscribe, share this video so that more people can see it. And if you feel there's something I'm saying, perhaps you've read the book that I'm not touching or that I've not touched in the first 2 chapters, you can comment below. Or perhaps you've read the book and there's something you feel you should say or comment. Please do not hesitate to comment below. Thank you. So chapter 3 is the growth and evolution of Nigeria banking industry. This chapter provides the historical context of Nigeria banking, the early banking model. The author describes the early split between merchant banking, corporate finance, UP culture, foreign partnerships, and commercial banking. So merchant banking are the corporate finance, UP culture, and foreign partnership, while the commercial banking are the retail, pseudo-colonial environment dominated by the big four. Who are the big four? The big four are the First Bank, Union Bank, UBA, and Afri Bank. Those are the big four then. So the 1988 liberalization, the military government began suing new banking licenses, lowering the barrier to entry. This led to a proliferation of banks, many of which were backed by Godfather. I mentioned this Godfather issue. They have the money, but they use bank to consolidate their power, not because they really understand the professionalism of banking, but because they have the money, they use banking to consolidate their power. So it happened that they started to deny people or increase the barrier to entry, seeking to profit from. So this godfather seek to profit from foreign exchange arbitrage. AIG chose to start his career during this period, which meant that he faced a lot of difficulties, much more. So the rise of professional banks. I mentioned professional banks in the past. The author highlights the emergence of professional owned and managers, noting that GT Bank, the Zenith, and others succeeded by focusing on customer service and technology, causing a mass migration of customers from older, inefficient banks. Finance houses and instability. In the 1990s, the 1990s saw the rise and collapse of fraudulent finance houses and crisis of confidence in the system. So, Access Bank's early history. The chapter includes by placing Access Bank's origin in this turbulent period. It's funny how whenever you want to do something big or something new, you always face challenges. You always face challenges. And I think I should say this, um, every time you want to do something, every time, check history, check scriptures, check the Bible, every time you want to do something significant, the next thing that confronts you is a barrier. Is a barrier. In the Bible says that God created the heaven and earth, and immediately the Bible says that the face of the earth was covered with darkness. Why must there be darkness after a new creation? It is what it is. You just start determining that you want to start something new, or you want to start committing yourself to doing something. The next thing that will face you is challenges. That's the next thing you face. But it means that you have to stay through to be able to go over the challenge and over the challenges, and then the light will now show up. Like people say light show up at the end of the tunnel. So that's exactly what happened to Access Bank here. He faced a lot of issues, tribulations when he was starting out. So that's chapter 3 for you. Chapter 4 now is the business model. I think this is the most interesting part, one of the most interesting part, I should say. This chapter explains the unique strategy AIG and Albert devised to turning Access Bank around. What are the sorry? What are the challenges? They knew their personal reputations weren't enough to win corporate clients from established banks like GT Bank and Zenith Bank. I think what really made it, should I say, difficult, or what posed more challenge to them was that GT Bank and Zenith Bank were already doing very, very good. If GT Bank and Zenith Bank were not, and FCMB were not in the light, it would have been very easy for them to compete with traditional banks or banks that were run by godfathers, and just bring in the professionalism and take up the market. But because GT Bank were already doing very, very good, was already doing very, very good, and they also came from GT Bank, it was very hard to compete against them. It was very hard to win customers for them to their own business. So they also had limited resources and could not compete on price or loan size. Looking at it, it looks like there was no there is no angle of entry for them. Looking at what is on ground. But what did they do? I think many of us have been in this situation before, that you just feel that what can I offer? What more can I offer to the market that someone else has not been offering before? So the value chain strategy, this is the strategy they deployed. They decided to deconstruct a customer's entire business value chain. They would identify the weaknesses in their operations, that's the cost and revenue, then propose integrated solution, not just banking product. This the proposition was that we will add value by increasing your revenue or reducing your cost. If we can't, don't bank with us. So I was reading a book by Alex Omozi, that's 100 million offer, and he said something very similar to this, which is that give people an offer that they will feel stupid not to accept, and he called it grand slam offer. If I do not increase your revenue or reduce your cost, do not bank with us. I think almost anybody would be interested in this, because they know that without result, they are not going to pay you, or without result, they will not bank with you. I think almost any business can apply this in their business. If I do not earn you more money, or if I do not reduce your cost, you should not do business with me. If you give me that proposition, I will accept it. And sometimes, let's say you are not selling product, you're probably selling services. You could say that if you do not get your desired results, don't pay me. That means I'm going to do the work upfront. Then hopefully I get the result you desire and can now pay me. This is a very, very good value proposition strategy, value chain strategy rather. So what are the executions and the demands? This strategy was intellectually demanding. Of course, we expected. It required deep knowledge of a client's business and a high level of service. They warned that They warn that greatness can only ever come at a cost, which is very true, requiring immense sacrifice from all employees. So how did they go about? Because of course, two people cannot just do all of this alone. They had to build a team. So how did they build a team? To deliver this, they needed a world-class team. They created the Access Bank School of Banking Excellence to train fresh graduates. They aggressively recruited from Citibank for operations and back office excellence and from GT Bank for entrepreneurial drive. See, one thing I learned from this their team building was that they were not trying to hire, they were going for the best. Let me just put it this way. They were going for the best and training the best to become now to become what? To become what they call to become their own best. You were coming from GT Bank. GT Bank made you who you are. Now you are saying that who you are is not still enough. There's something more you have found or you need to give to the market to be able to take the share of the market. So you are recruiting from GT Bank, train them again. That means after training, they have to be, of course, they will most likely be better than what they were before. Training them again. So you are taking people with entrepreneurial drive from GT Bank, you train them. They are taking people with operational and back office excellence from Citibank. I mean, that combination is very crazy. Then you now train them all over again. Despite all you are recruiting them because they are already very good. Now you are training them to ensure that they can deliver on your own goals and your visions. I mean, that's a killer. So, what is the sector focus? They identify key sectors: cement, beverages, telecommunication, and oil and gas. Their relationship with Alhaji Aliko Dangote was a pivotal early success as it gave them a chance when their foreign currency balance sheet was tiny. I should say this here that when you launch an idea, it will look like all odds are against you. It will look like it will not see the light of the day. But in the midst of all of this, there's always one person or two people that would believe enough to risk their finance or their capital or their money with you or their credibility with you. But if you do not start at all, you won't know that those people exist. I believe so because I've seen that in my own business before. When you got an idea and you felt, will this idea survive? Will this idea thrive? And you launch it, then maybe your first client just did a very big business with you, and that just helped to scale. It might not even be your first client, maybe your 10th client. Maybe there was just somebody that was just there to motivate you or to just give you guidance. It's always like that. So, organizational structure, the strategy was delivered through corporate banking as large clients, commercial banking, distributors and suppliers, investment banking, advisory, and all supported by a strong operations and technology group. I believe that those into banking will understand this much more, but it also applies to every other business. So let's move on. That's the wrap for chapter 4. Let's go to chapter 5. I'm not sure we'll be able to finish this today. However, we will just stop once it is 1 hour, then we can do the remaining later. Chapter 5 was the what is called the challenge. This chapter outlines the daunting situation at Access Bank upon their arrival and their immediate actions. The state of the bank. Access was a small, nearly invisible bank with a poor reputation, ranking in the last quarter. It had a weak balance sheet, poor personnel, and a troubled culture, and also was mired in foreign exchange scandal. It had 11 billion in assets, 14 branches, and was making a loss. You know how this is funny because you know how you can have billions and yet you are making loss. You are making losses rather. You can have assets that are worth billions and yet you can have branches. And this is what we don't see about big businesses. We think because they have structures, they have infrastructures, they have buildings, they should be making profit, but sometimes they are making, and their losses are in big losses. Only that their profit also come in big profits. So so when they are making losses, they are really making losses, and when they are making profit, they are really making profits. So immediate action, they move to attracting clients with a new compensation structure. They structure their balance sheet, turning losses into profit in 2 months. I mean, that's very short, in a very short time, 2 months. They disclose malpractices, that is, they are trying to protect their integrity. Crucially, they voluntarily and fully disclose the bank's foreign exchange malpractice to CBN and sanction the employees involved. This act of transparency saved their license, while under while 40 other banks were suspended from foreign dealings for a year. They also reduced the cost of funding from 20% to single digits in 6 months. Staff rationalization, they boldly dismiss employees connected to board members who lack the capacity or willingness to support the transformation. This was done without prior board approval, causing conflicts but being essential for change. This is also another part that caught my attention because previously, before they got into Access Bank, some of the or most of the employees were brought in by the board of directors, which meant that Access Bank previously was that kind of bank that were run by godfathers. So they brought in their people to run. You know how political sector is. You bring in your people, you're bringing your son or your daughter to be part of the system. So that at the end of the day, the money is not still going out, it's still revolving around the family. So that's exactly what was happening here. So what AIG had to do, as the new CEO and the deputy, what they had to do was to remove all those people that were not really professional, really effective, but they're just there for the money. So they had to weed them away. And on a norm, what they were supposed to do was to consult the board members or board of directors and say, okay, this is our next step. Give us approval so that we can go ahead. But they did it without their approval. This caused a lot of conflict and issues, but they had to, if they want to, and it's like that in every business. When you want to move forward, there are some people that you have to remove, and there are some people that you have to onboard. So this is exactly what Access Bank did. They had to remove people that were not really productive and bring in new ones that were able to drive the vision. So that's chapter 5. So chapter 6, a vision for transformation, mission impossible. And it's really mission impossible. This chapter details the creation of Access Bank foundational philosophy. The relaying call, they established a vision to transform our bank into world-class financial service provider. Their mission was to go beyond the ordinary to deliver perceived impossible in the quest for excellence. When I hear excellence, sometimes it's an overused word, because what you call excellence is just an improved, should I say, improved improved norm. But I can attest to what the writer is saying here, that it was really a quest for excellence, because if you see what they had to go through to deliver that kind of excellence they promised, man, it's a lot. So the quest for excellence, this became the bank's mantra. They set an audacious goal from obscurity to a top 10 Nigerian bank in 5 years. That is the quest for excellence. Previously, before now, they were ranked, I think 70. They were about 70 in banks when it comes to rating of banks. But in 5 years, they said they were going to become one of the top five. And for a bank that was in debt, that was in a small bank for that matter, it's a big quest for excellence. So building the culture, they consciously rejected a paternalistic, which is a godfather style culture. They built a meritocracy where Advancement was based on pure performance. The atmosphere was competitive, open, and demanding. So they call it the access way. What is the access way? They develop a set of core values which start from excellence, trust, teamwork, a passion for customers, ethics, continuous learning. They wrote a guide called the access way, a codify to codify the culture. Now the empowerment, they believe a bank's true role was to be a vehicle for economic empowerment, not just to provide pleasant customer service. They aim to help customers improve their lives and businesses. This is very key because most time when we run businesses to make money. People even say that the goal of a business is profit, and it's not true. The goal of a business is to improve the customer's experience and also improve the customer's life. Because at the end of the day, if they are getting value from your business, they will put more money into your business. They will patronize you more. They will do business with you. And your money basically comes from value offering or value creation. If there's no value, there's no need. Either value in terms of service or a value in terms of perception. Because I'm a big fan of, I say a lot that people do not buy your product. People buy what they perceive your product will do to them or do for them. Then when they now experience your product, they can now come over and over again to buy more. That's chapter 6. Chapter 7 now, finding and developing the best people. The way this guy uses words, I mean, is spring from a lot of confidence, saying that we have the best people and we are developing the best people. This chapter focuses on Access Bank's human capital strategy. This is a rigorous recruitment between 2002 to 2011. AIG personally interviewed over 5,000 professionals, acting as the final screen in a very demanding process. Access Bank School of Banking Excellence. This was an intensive. Oh, okay, please give me a few minutes. Okay, this was an intensive 4-month boot camp for entry level recruits, modeled on the training he admired at Chase Manhattan. So if you see most of the things AID did, he didn't just do them by just waking up, and he learned them somewhere. He has been through a system that made him go through such. So he's trying to now pass it across to people in um, and trying to focus it on his vision or goal they want to achieve. So he learned this from Chase Manhattan. It required participants to pass 15 exams with a score of 65% or higher. Over 2,000 graduates have passed through, half of whom remain with the bank. It became the gold standard for professional training in Nigeria. And I also must say that despite this training, some people go through the training and they do not pass. Some people go through, they pass, but yet they did not stay in the system or in the bank. So beyond training people for Access Bank, they are also in turn affecting Nigerian citizens, because those who have gone through the training but didn't stay will go to other system or other niche or other sector or other banks to also become much more effective, because now they have become better people and they can offer better value. What are the performance management? A merit-driven system with clear objective goals. High performance was rewarded with monetary and non-monetary compensation, including sponsorship for postgraduate degrees at top universities. And these are ways to reward their staffs and also compensate them. Culture and sacrifice. The culture was not for everyone. Employees were expected to combine the role of management consultant, auditor, and investment banker, requiring significant personal sacrifice. So beyond the CEO sacrificing a lot and trying to put in enough structure, staffs were also putting in a lot. taking multiple roles at the same time. Yeah, I would say that most times employees do not want to inconvenience themselves. They just want to do the barest minimum and get paid for what they probably are not doing. But however, if you find an employee that is putting his or her best, the best thing to also do is to reward the employee. Compensations like sponsorship for more learning or more trainings, ensuring that their family is well taken care of, um, end of the year package, all of those things also going a long way um, to help employee have a better life because they are giving their life, not just their skill, they are giving their life to the business. So they also invested in staff to show commitment to employee welfare. They built a fitness and recreational center with a crèche, wow, a gym, and also restaurant, demonstrating that a demanding employer can also be a caring one. And this is very, very important because they were demanding a lot from their employees. At the time, they were going through training for 3 days, stretch training, and all of those. So that's chapter 7. I think I should stop here. I think I should stop here because of time. Should I stop here? Should I stop here? Okay, I will stop here because of time. I'll stop here because of time. Thank you so much. If you have stayed through this far, you will know that I try as much as possible to capture almost every aspect of this book from chapter 1 to chapter 7. So the next live session have would run from chapter 8 to the last chapter. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. I will see you. If you have not subscribed, it's very wrong. Please do well to subscribe and share this video. And I would love to see your comments in the comment section. Tell me, did I miss anything? Is there any other book you want me to review like this? Let's have conversation. And if you want us to, perhaps you want us to review a book together, we can do that also. Just send me a message. Send a message to the email on my account, and let's get to do that. Have a blessed day. See you.